Welcome back, crew. Today we are jumping into our recap of Gen Con 2024, highlighting the TTRPGs we played, going over our admittedly pretty small haul compared to others. We're gonna hit some of the things about the con itself we enjoyed, as well as highlight some cool food because I've got some great food out there too. Uh, but with that too, want to give a big shout out. This con was amazing. This is my second time going to Gen Con, and it was a lot of fun. From playing some new games to people watching to getting to hang out with some geeks that also have a love and appreciation for TTRPGs. It was a blast all around. And one of the big things that kind of made it a good experience for me on the side is we actually went with a pretty big crew of people renting an Airbnb and having a ton of people there. And it was fun being able to kind of discuss and kind of see what everybody else did with their Gen Con experience. Because let me see, kind of a wider world of what is available at Gen Con outside of the things that immediately call out to me, which kind of tweak some of the things I picked for Gen Con 2025 when I get out there again. And shout out to the crew too, because I'll be using some of their feedback and kind of highlight some fun things for Gen Con 2024. But let's dive into it. So this is a tabletop RPG channel. We're gonna kick it off there first with the games I got to play. We're building this into two categories: games that are new or debuted at the con, as well as games that may have debuted earlier, but we got to play this year. And with these, a few of these, we're going to have separate videos where we take deeper dives. So if you want more information on a few, I probably know which few you're talking about. There will be more videos to come, hopefully this week. So stay tuned for that. And speaking of that, let's kick it off with the biggest one that debuted this year, Cosmere, or as it was labeled at the Gen Con playtest, Stormlight TTRPG. They actually just launched their Kickstarter yesterday. I think they're already like within the first hour or even probably first few minutes, probably. They were already way over their goal. Last time I looked, they were at like 2 million with their goal of like 200,000 ish. So they were already killing it. Stormlight or Cosmere are based off of the Brandon Sanderson kind of series of books, with Cosmere including both the Stormlight and Mistborn series. Now, let me call it out first. I have not read these series yet. The playtest, kind of cool lore from the playtest, as well as the other people I went with to Gen Con, have convinced me I've ordered them. I should have it read, the whole series read before Cosmere properly debuts. But hit the playtest, it was a lot of fun. It's definitely one, and kind of with coming from the author Brandon Sanderson, it makes sense that they really went all in on the lore. There's a lot of cool pieces of lore. The GM was very accommodating, explaining said lore to me as it came up. But the system itself is a D20 system. Now, I know when everybody says D20, a lot of times people feel like it may be too similar to D&D and kind of get a little turned off on that side. And while it does share some roots with D&D, they've done a couple things, or a lot of things, I should say, that have made it their own. And we're gonna this is definitely one we're gonna do a deep video dive into. Two of the big things I really noticed, I thought, that did a good job of making it feel distinct from D&D. One of my favorites is the fate die. This is a D6 or the game master, I should say, bust out in critical moments where I mean, add a little extra spice, as our game master said. We're adding something to where something can going wrong or going well could really spice up the scene, just to add that extra set of tension, that extra set of things happening. And it did a great job with that. The D6, very similar if you've played like Blades in the Dark or PBTA style game. It's usually going to be something where either nothing happens, which is rare, or there's going to be a complication where something kind of even if you succeed, there's extra something bad happens that kind of screws the party over, but increases tension, kind of increases the moment that the party is going through. Or on the flip side, an opportunity happens, something that actually helps the party along, gives them an extra opportunity to do better in that scene. And I like that. It's always nice when the game master has different tools and resources that they can use just to really up the tension of their game. And I like how the PBTA and Forge of the Dark styles do that. It's really quite cool to put that on top of a D20 system and still kind of get the crunch and the niceness of rolling a D20 in my view. So really enjoyed that aspect. One thing that they do that's unique, and we're going to go into this in our review, 'cause I like it, but I do have some tweaks to it. At least tweaks in my head, I should say. Their initiative system. So it's really cool because in the Stormlight or the Cosmere game, it's similar a little bit to Pathfinder, just a little bit. But the big difference being And I say it's similar because you have between 2 or 3 actions depending on what you choose on your turn. Because each turn, both the enemies as well as the players get to choose a fast turn or a slow turn. If you do a fast turn, there's no like initiative rolling system. The players start first with a fast turn. They get 2 actions they can use. Movement does take an action, so similar to Pathfinder. They can attack, they can use spells, they can use features, but they're going to go first. They're going to go ahead of the monsters and decide in the party who goes within the party first. Now, if you do a slow turn, any fast monsters will go ahead of you. The slow monster is still behind you, but you'll get 3 turns that you can spend however you like. With that though, I like that system. I do think there needs to be a little bit of like a kind of like you're stealing from Workboard, which we recently played, like a D6 system that goes on top of that that decides who goes between first between the monsters on the fast and the players on the fast and slow turns. Because it can get a little bit metagamey with how the faster can go and just start wiping monsters off the board before they get a chance to react. But that could just be the wargamer in me. I got it coming out. It was a lot of fun. It took out a lot of the slowness that comes with the initiative from D&D and kind of D&D like games because you're able to just really dive right into it. That players start making choices, which is good. But I do feel like a little extra crunch needs to go on just to make sure it stays balanced and doesn't become a wall. But overall, really enjoyed that. That's going to be the first video we do. We're going to be taking a really deep look into what I experienced with my Stormlight gameplay and kind of calling out some of its cool features, especially with its Kickstarter up and live now. Moving on from there, let's check out the other game. The game I was really excited to play. That debuted at the con with the playtest. Starfinder 2e is out. I haven't had a chance to do a deep dive of the playtest yet, but I got to play it at the con, and it was amazing. They've really done a good job of adding in some of the Starfinder and some of the sci-fi elements into kind of the Pathfinder 2e play style. Though this is when I and well, this is because it's a play test, and I haven't gotten a chance to look through the book that they put out. I'm hoping that they do have some more sci-fi elements that they can add into it. I'm looking for ship-to-ship combat. I'm hoping for some more cool and weird sci-fi items just to really give it that kind of science fiction feel. As you can see with my Star Wars stuff, I'm a huge sci-fi fan. I've run a Star Wars game for years, and I'm looking for a new system to run it with too. So I'm hoping this could be that. But I'm looking to see kind of more on that side. But overall, if you like Pathfinder 2e, you should like this. It has that Pathfinder 2e 3 action system. A lot of the actions and resources carry over from Pathfinder into Starfinder, but they have sci-fied it up a bit. The classes feel distinct. I got to play my favorite one from Starfinder 1E, Solarian, and that was a lot of fun to play, even at level I think 1 or 2, I forgot what we were at for this one for the play test. And it was a lot of cool things I could do. I had so many options. It'll be cool to see how it progresses as you go from 1 to 20. So that's one I'm really keeping an eye on for. We're probably going to be there'll definitely be a video coming for that. And once Occupation finishes, I'm definitely going to be playing a short campaign utilizing the playtest. So stay tuned for that too. But overall, fun. If you like Pathfinder 2e, if you like sci-fi, you should love this one too. So next big one that I got to play that was debuting at the con was one that I didn't even sign up for. But one of the other people that came with the crew mentioned it, and I had a hour open for the demo, and I jumped into Shadow Scar. And actually, I got a little thingy for it because they were nice and gave a little free handout with kind of the intro rules. So Shadow Scar is by R. Talsorian. And it's a dice pool system, and it's kind of like ninjas hunting. It's like in modern world, but it's like ninjas hunting down kind of breaches of these uh, like fiendish or demonic creatures ghostly creatures breaching in from a rift from their world, the ethereal world, into the kind of the real world. And it was one I wasn't sure I'd like at first, but it was a lot of fun. The playtest was great. Is what I'm looking forward to seeing more as it comes out. Right now, it's only out with the starter set, the core rulebook. I think they said it was going to be early next year. And I'm definitely once the core rulebook comes out, it may be one of the games of the month because it was fun to play. Had some really unique flavor, and it was just kind of cool mixing kind of some of the ninjutsu and all that into kind of a TTRPG. And it'd be one I'd like to see kind of as it's fully complete how it plays out too. So more to come on that one. And it's Big shout out for Artalosaurian for their like starting play guides. I think they were the biggest biggest publisher I saw that did that for like, all their games, and it was cool getting to pick those up and get a little bit more information on how the system works and the core pieces of the game. So those are the games we got to play that were new or debuting at the con. Unfortunately, I was signed up for 13th Age, but the game was 1E versus 2E, but it was still pretty cool. So let's get into the games that debuted earlier, but still maybe have some updates or new version or just kind of getting into it. So, one of the big ones, Daggerheart. I was able to sneak into a game this year. We got to check out the updates to the Daggerheart system. If you guys watched GenCon 2023, we actually got to play it as a debut live or debuted at the first con. This is its second year coming, and they've kind of tweaked it and kind of refined the formula. Uh, it's blast to play. So it's a 2D12 or 12 system with a hope and fear die, and they have kind of made some big tweaks to it compared to where it was last year, primarily with the initiative system as well as defining some of the combat pieces and kind of distances to make it a little bit smoother to play. But they still kept a lot of the cool class features. Though I think the warrior does need a little bit of a spruce up. A lot of the other ones with the guardian, the rogue. I forgot the name of what they call their rogue, where they can do all the shadowy stuff. They have so many cool and flavorful pieces that they could bring into combat, as well as like the RP and exploratory side, that it kept the game moving. One thing which we're gonna this Daggerheart's another one. We had another video out this week, but one thing I do want to call out is especially the initiative system. So this is kind of similar to some of like the other PBTA games where you don't have a set initiative order. You kind of act as you see fit, with hopefully everybody getting a chance to act before. But between the players and the monsters, the players can kind of go in any order that they'd like to. But when you roll your 2d12 with the hope and fear die, if you roll with hope, you continue passing the baton on to your other players in your party. And rolling with hope, quick run through is if your hope die is larger than your fear die, whether it's successful or not. So if you rolled a 2 on the fear, 5 on the hope, you would say you're rolling with hope. And even if you failed your check, you roll with hope. Your team continues to hold the ball there. You keep getting to make actions, and you keep getting to roll and roll and roll until somebody rolls with fear dice, or the fear dice being higher than the hope die. So when that happens, it switches over to the monsters. With that, though, I know you guys one of the kids that can be a little bit of a stomp too for when it comes to the game master and the monsters. If people keep rolling hope, hope, hope. But the interesting thing with that is that the game master gets tokens or it gets actions, I should say. They use tokens during our playtest. Gets actions each time a player goes, so they kind of get added to their action pool. And if it does get to be a runaway with the players getting like a ton of actions in a row, the game master can bust out a ton of things that they can do with their monsters. And if they do have like a boss monster or higher level monsters, they can spend multiple tokens to do big things for them. So this would be one that we're going to do a bigger dive in, especially as I'm going to do a little bit of a deeper review for the beta for Daggerheart. So keep an eye out for that this week. But enjoyed this system. Looking forward to kind of see where it goes. Uh, Outside of that, we got to play a couple games that have been out already on the market. The Coyote and Crow. I did some coverage on that. That was my second game that I covered as a game of the month. But forgot to do a review when I was brand new on that one. So there's going to be a review for that later this week as well. Big shout out to the game master we had for that one. His name was Logan. I can't remember his last name, but he was one of the best storytellers I've come across. It did a fantastic job setting the scenes and the characters, all of that, for the one shot that we got to run. So definitely kind of a good re-experience for me with Coyote and Crow, getting re-familiar with the mechanics as well as just getting to see an awesome story played out on the table. Also got to jump into Walking Dead. That's gonna be our October game of the month, and it was a blast. TPK for the party, but it was definitely a fun TPK. It felt like a Walking Dead episode, which I think is like the highest compliment you can give it. A system that's emulating a property as it feels like that property. And that's Free League. Like every time they've done something that I've been familiar with the property, whether it be Lord of the Rings, the There's others I am blanking on right. Alien, thank you, that I'm blanking on right now. But every time they've done a system that's based off of a property, it really feels like they hit the right notes. And this one was no different. Another great game master. It was just felt like an episode of Walking Dead, even with all of us. Or actually, I shouldn't say to TPK. Uh, Doomer Moth, one of the players that's frequently on the channel, their player survived somehow. And we were talking after the game, and I think this is like the fourth time in a game that we've played together. The other three are on the channel. That their player somehow walks away from a TPK. So that was just kind of fun there. It just really gave that Walking Dead feel. The other game was Fate. So I got to play Fate Accelerated, I should clarify. And I actually liked it. I know this is one of the ones like some people don't like and don't like. And I'm not sure if they don't like the regular Fate version or the accelerated version. But it's one I see a lot of controversy on, like the TTRPG subs and review sites. But I really enjoyed the accelerated version. We played a very comedic and goofy one shot, but it was cool to kind of show off what that system can do. Keep an eye on. I'm not sure if we're going to do Fate or Fate Accelerated, but that'll definitely be a game of the month sometime down the line. But yeah, those are the games I got to play. Really a great time this year. I think I had some of the best game matches I've had at Gen Con last year. A little hit or miss, a little more missing it last year, but this year I really had some fun ones. Let's dive into my very small Gen Con haul. And once again, so this one big shout out to Artal Storian again. This is kind of like the intro rule set for The Witcher. I got that intro rule set as well as Shadow Scar. They were one of the only big publishers I saw that were handing out those kind of little rule sets that you could kind of pick up and learn a little bit about their game. I was hoping to buy the Witcher book, but did not. Did not. I bought a little bit too much on other things. So let's pick into things we bought. So let's start off with the one that's on top of my pile, Numenera. So this uses the Cipher system. It's by Monty Cook Games. I think I actually saw Monty Cook in there, but I didn't recognize him at first. So I saw somebody sign their thing, and I didn't want to go back. I'm like, hey, I realize you're somebody famous now. Uh, but the Cyber Numenera is using that Cipher system. If you watched our Old Gods of Appalachia content, this uses that same system. From what it is, what I've heard is a sci-fi world where it's like thousands and thousands of years in the future upon Earth, where people just don't understand how the technology works any longer, and it's almost a form of magic. And one of our players, Chris from our Pandemonium game, had some really nice things to say about it, so I picked up the game. I enjoyed the cipher system with Old God, so I really want to kind of see how it fits in the sci-fi world. So I haven't done a dive on this one yet, but this will probably be one of our games of the month as we go down the line. The next one, and I couldn't resist on this one. I'm a huge X-Men fan. The X-Men expansion debuted for the Marvel Multiverse system at the con. I flipped through this one a little bit. It was great. So many cool X-Men characters, so many new additions. This one, either this week or next, will be one that we do kind of a quick review for, leafing through it and kind of see what it adds to the Marvel Multiverse system. And then definitely check out some of our other Marvel Multiverse content as well because it's a cool system. And one thing I want to say for the con, because if you watched my review for the Marvel Multiverse piece, you know one of my major complaints is that it doesn't have a PDF, and you often have to buy both the book as well as like register for Playing or Roll20 to be able to share it with your players. Big shout out to Marvel. They gave if you bought this at the con, you got a little card that allowed you to register for both Demiplane and Roll20 for both the X-Men book as well as the core rule book for the Marvel Multiverse. So you can have those in digital copies, make it easier for you to get your players able to play. So big shout out to them. That was one of my biggest thorns, and that helped mitigate it. Excuse me, at least for people at the con. And the other one, which may be taking our game of the month for August instead of Shadows, we the Fallout TTRPG by Modifius. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. This is a D20 system based off the Fallout world, and they finally had it back in stock. They've been sold out since the TV show aired, so I'm looking forward to diving into that one. That's either going to be our game of the month for August or maybe September if the Patreons vote for that one, if we don't go for the other one in August, because I'm very curious to dive into that system and see how much like Fallout it feels. So as I said, pretty small haul. I didn't do buy too much, buy any dice or anything like that. I was just kind of sticking mostly to finding some cool TTRPG books to either run for games of the month or just really expand my library. So let's dive into the last few pieces. We're going to talk about some cool things from the con, and then wrap it up with some cool food that we got to try too. Because I think that's one of the things I've noticed is they always have like official food and drink for that. I want to give that a shout out. So this is a big con. This is the biggest con to date. 71,000 people were there. And one of the things I'll say is like Saturday morning felt like super busy compared to last time. But at least I don't know if the crowd wasn't staying as late this year compared to last year. But especially it was like after about like 1, 2, it didn't feel as crazy as it did. Like earlier in the day, like kind of especially around 10 o'clock, it felt like just trying to push through a sea of people. And it was still crowded, don't get me wrong, later in the day, but it didn't feel as crowded as we went through. Definitely, if you were at Gen Con, shout out what you thought too. Saturday in particular just didn't feel as crazy all day as it did last year. And kind of all the days kind of have a similar feel. Morning, ridiculous. Well, actually, and let me clarify too. The convention or the sales room floor, I can't remember the name of it, always was crazy. But the other surrounding areas within the convention center didn't seem as crazy this year as years past. So I'm not sure if I was alone on that. So curious to see what the crew thinks. Also, with that, um, one of the things I saw on Reddit, one of the things one of my players mentioned too, is that big shout out to the Gen Con team for having water so easily and readily available. With so many people probably filling up, it probably was a big work effort to keep all of those coolers and things filled. But it was great. I know I drank quite a bit. One of my other people that I went with drank quite a bit, so it was nice to have kind of accessible water. They didn't have to pay $10 for at their stores. So big shout out to the Gen Con crew for that. 'Cause I know that was probably a ton of effort and work. Overall, the con was amazing. Great people watching. Really, the cosplay was amazing this year. A lot of Baldur's Gate cosplay, too. So it was just kind of cool to just kind of get to experience it. It all ran smoothly as well. Nothing too crazy. Big shout out to the companies that are starting to do the digital tickets for it. Kind of just scanning your badge versus requiring a printed ticket. I'm hoping we see a lot more of that next year. But I really enjoyed that aspect. The last thing I'll say for a recap about the con itself, and I'm not sure if this was just me, but especially with 71,000 people, I can see why it was so crazy. A little bit of a harder time this year when it came to kind of wish listing as well as getting your wish list processed. I know myself and a lot of others were there like right as the hour turned, but still were like hundreds, if not thousands of places back in line a little bit harder to get some of the tickets or items or games or events that you wanted to go through. But one thing I'll say, because we didn't have Daggerheart on our schedule, note on early morning game, people, there's always somebody that misses, and sometimes even if somebody doesn't skip the game, game masters will be willing to give you a seat at the table. Just buy some generics, go early, and kind of see what is open. Because we got in Daggerheart, that's how I got into Shadow Scar. Just go early, see what's open, and see if there will often be a ticket for you because especially if you go later days in the con, people start to skip things. So it's bad for them. Sometimes bad for the game master, but it's always great when you can put somebody in the spot versus just having an empty seat at the table. So my key advice to the crew. So after that, the only big thing I will say, and I didn't get to do it this year, but I'm putting this hard on my list next year, is I want to check out the first exposure hall. I had a few of the people that I went with go through that, playing either tabletop RPGs or board games. And they said it was such a great experience getting to see something that was being in development and being able to provide feedback and be able to kind of be one of the first people to experience a system. I had it on my schedule, but unfortunately, I had to drop it for Daggerheart. So it's one I want to try out for myself. I always love playing new things, and I'd love to be able to see a new tabletop RPG and also provide my own 2 cents on kind of how to help them out with bringing that to market or just making that available to the people, whatever they may choose. So that was kind of my thoughts on the con itself. Last big thing I'm going to shout out for a few minutes. The con had some great food. I love the various food trucks that came through. Big shout out to Jay's Lobster as well as the bread place that does the Korean corn dogs. But the big thing I wanted to give kind of a quick thoughts on were the kind of official Gen Con food. Which was the cinnamon ale for Sun King Brewing, as well as the pickled goblin burger. The cinnamon ale, I didn't think I love cinnamon ales and I love kind of beers with lactose in them. For some reason, I thought it was a stout, which I was worried about with the Gen Con heat. It luckily wasn't. It was an ale. Very good, very refreshing. It tasted cinnamony, and it was definitely kind of a cool, interesting beer to be able to try out. I liked it. It wasn't overpowering with the heat because I was worried about it being hot and having lactose. But it was definitely kind of an interesting flavor and a good beer to have and kind of a unique beer too. With that too, the pickled goblin burger was amazing. I love fried pickles. I like ranch. And it was just a fun one to get to try out. It was pretty well too for having to make like hundreds of them at a moment. So it was definitely worth getting. I'm not sure what the burger of the year will be next year, but definitely check out that booth too. They always have something cool. But overall, that's just kind of quick run through of my experience at Gen Con. I'd love to see kind of what you all, for anybody that attended, what you all thought, and for anybody that wasn't able to make it, shout out some things you may have had questions about. I know we covered some big pieces here, but there's a lot that goes on at the con that would make this video like an hour long if I let it. So shout that out, and I'll see if we can answer that to the best of our ability. But thanks for hanging out and definitely stay tuned. The con is going to be a yearly thing for me, but we are getting back into our reviews and kind of our games of the month. So games of the month is either going to be Fallout or Shadows of the Demon Lord, and we're going to be doing reviews for or first impressions, I should say, for Daggerheart, Stormlight, or Cosmere, as well as Shadow Scar and some of the other games we got to try out at the con. So thanks for hanging out and till next time.